Yeah, I mean, if we weren't live, I'd just be doing that. Maybe at some point I'll be able to do it beautifully and I'll do it more live. What do I mean by that? The harmonic series, which is just blowing my mind, hence mad scientist vibes. Greetings, friends. Salutations from space. Aloha from Earth. Welcome to this pop-up exploration here at the School of Earth Astrology with your host and celestial navigator, Gemini Brett. I'm going to explore astro, musical, calendar, kung fu, and ask this question of what is the Egyptian order? Something I've heard before. So we'll speak about the Chaldean order today. The domicile lords of the signs, the so-called lords of the faces, or the rulers of the faces, or decans of the zodiac, and how they reveal the order of the days of the week and the 7-day week system that goes way back to Babylon. And some new news I recently heard about the days of the week being linked to the circle of fifths. So something that musical harmonicists will know super well. I'm going to bring up a website before I go there so I can give credit where credit is due. All right, well, let's explore. How's that feel? So, where to begin? I'm about to begin with the Thema Mundi, right? So it's said to be the chart of the world soul, this thing, where really we would draw planets in, but I'm not set to do that in the software right now. But the Thema Mundi, which is said to be a chart that was given to us by Hermes Trismegistus himself, has 15 degrees Cancer rising. And then it has the moon at 15 degrees and the sun at 15 degrees of the following sign of Leo, and Mercury at 15 degrees of the following sign, Virgo, and then Venus at 15 Libra, Mars at 15 Scorpio, Jupiter at 15 Sagittarius, and Saturn at 15 Capricorn. Now, some of the ancient astrologers then told these different tales about how the other signs were filled in, right? So it's like when the moon went to the far reaches and met Saturn, then coming back, it's like Saturn repeats, and then we come back in Jupiter, Mars, Venus, Mercury, and then to the moon. Okay, I want to just share a couple of things before I'll stop the screen share and we'll wrap about this a bit. That's a chart that I'm sure you're mostly familiar with. Is that one, at least from the way that the solar system works now, the placements in the Thema Mundi chart are astronomically impossible in the cases of Mercury and Venus, because Mercury can only ever be 28 degrees maximum from the sun. So that if the sun's at 15 Leo, Mercury could never be 30 degrees away at 15 Virgo. And Venus can never be at 15 degrees Libra if the sun's at 15 Leo, because the maximum elongation for Venus is 48 degrees. And of course, this sextile from 15 Leo to 15 Libra is 60, right? Look, if the sun's in Leo, Mercury can't even be in the sign of Gemini. Mercury, because his maximum elongation in phase, whether as a morning star or as an evening star, is 28 degrees, is only ever in the same sign as the sun or in one of the neighboring signs. So if the sun's in Leo, the only options astronomically for Mercury would be Cancer, Leo, or Virgo, not Gemini. And because Venus's maximum elongation is 48 degrees, you can have a Libra Venus with a Leo sun, just not 60 degrees separated like this, right? But we could certainly have a late Leo sun and an early Libra Venus. That's within that 48 degrees maximum for Venus as an evening star. We couldn't, however, have Venus in Taurus, right? Even if 29 Taurus for Venus and 0 Libra for the sun, well, that's separated by more than 60 degrees, and Venus can't do that. So it's an interesting thing to consider, that this ancient code of the Thema Mundi, it's not necessarily astronomically derived in that regard. Many would suggest these domicile associations, and I prefer those old terms of domicile lords and domicile landladies. It's a landlord and a landlady, to experience that. That it's like a northern hemisphere seasonal experience. I feel that one is easier to show when maybe we put, take this to a whole sign image. Let's get one up. So I'll go from equals to whole signs. And let's put Scorpio on the rise. So why would I do that? Because then you get Saturn at these places that, like if this was a chart where we're out with our feet on the ground, right? As of course the ascendant, descendant represent the horizon with everything. And these houses 12 through 7 are above the ground and 6 through 1 below, right? Then you get Saturn kind of in the places where the sun would be in the middle of the night. And that middle of the night is correspondent with the middle of the year, like winter solstice time, right? Like, so the middle of the night I can speak about globally. Middle of the night in its respect to the year as winter solstice, of course, that's kind of a hemispheric statement, isn't it? And I like to act locally but think globally, and I know that because the tropical zodiac, like so many sacred systems of ancient wisdom traditions, is directionally aligned, it works whether you're living north or south of the equator line. Still, in this seasonal thing, right, that's a tale of two hemispheres, and it's more dynamic than that. I mean, the seasons in London are very different than those in Madrid, right? Anyway, let's speak of it from some northern hemisphere point of view, right? Where you get the moon and the sun and these summary signs, right? So we'll correlate that with the place of the chart where we're used to seeing midday. And then you get Saturn, Capricorn, and Aquarius, and these wintry signs. So we'll put those down at the bottom of the chart in a place we associate with midnight. So it's interesting to see that the Scorpio rising chart, in some regards, I think kind of best fits that mold. And then there's just said to kind of be the solar side and then the lunar side of this domicile Lord and Lady layout, right? Where we look at the sun and the moon. Some teach it like this. You hear this a lot these days, especially if the sun rules Leo, because it's the hottest month of the year. Tell that to somebody in Bolivia, all right? That's not true. So again, I like to think globally, but act locally. Let's just play Northern Hemisphere point of view, though, of course, Babylon, Northern Hemisphere, India, Northern Hemisphere, Egypt, Greece, right? A lot of the places where Western astrology and Eastern astrology were born. So some say the sun rules Leo because it's the hottest month of the year, and then the moon is the sun's neighbor. I mean, interestingly, in the Thema Mundi chart, right, we get, let me get those other images up. We get 15 Cancer as the ascendant, not Leo. So wouldn't that in a way favor the moon and say then the sun is the neighbor of the moon? I mean, the signs are filled in the Thema Mundi originally in this direction, right? So it's moon, sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, And from there, we're really just going according to planetary speed. That's actually more true in this direction from the moon, right? And this brings us to the Chaldean order, as it's called, which is Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon, Earth, right? And so this you've, I'm sure, seen as kind of like the Ptolemaic universe, this image of Earth, and then the heavenly spheres, Moon closest to us. And Moon, of course, goes most quickly through the zodiac. It's around in only 27 and a third days, right? Then Mercury, the next fastest planet, then Venus, the next, and then the Sun, right? So the Sun moves, as we know, about 1 degree per day. Venus can get up to, a degree and a quarter-ish, and Mercury over 2 degrees per day. And then the moon's 13 and a third degrees per day on average, right? So looking at planetary speed is close to Earth, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Sun. Mars, about 2 years around the zodiac. Jupiter, about 12. Saturn, about 29 and a half years around, right? Then the fixed stars, which are fixed, right? And then spirit. So an old image was we're falling through these spheres from our pure, perfect spiritual light form. And then you're kind of collecting these things that make you through the sphere of Saturn and Jupiter, Mars, and the Sun, through those of Venus, Mercury, and the Moon, right? And then here you are incarnated on Earth. And then when we die, we'll go up and we'll kind of clean up at each of these spheres, first the Moon, and then Mercury, then Venus, then the Sun, then Mars, then Jupiter and Saturn, then the stars, before we return to pure light, right? So that Chaldean order, we can see in the domicile setup of the zodiac, except for there's one place that's off, right? So let's get that back on the screen. Where's it off, right? So Moon, Mercury, Venus. Oh, the Sun should be here. So what happened, right? We're going from the interior planets, as they're called, although the Moon can be inside the Earth and outside of the Earth. That's Mercury and Venus only ever can be within the orbit or between Earth and Sun or on the other side of the Sun, but they can never be on the other side of Earth, right, from the Sun. And Mars and Jupiter and Saturn can only ever be outside of the Earth, right? They can never get between us and the Sun. So the interior, or they say inferior planets, and the exterior, the superior planets. Moon's really a special case, which, by the way, is why Moon never retrogrades. And I don't want to climb on that cosmic branch right now, because I came here to do some other things, right? So it's kind of interesting when you're looking through the Chaldean order that the Sun, in a sense, is in the wrong place. And again, if we're just looking at planetary speed, from the Moon, we go Mercury, Venus, we should go Sun. But let's just say Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. Well, that's right. What about when we look from the Sun? We maybe have the Moon here, or maybe the Moon here, since it's with the Earth, right? So now we're looking heliocentrically. Mercury's the closest planet to the Sun. Venus, the next closest planet to the Sun. Earth, the third rock from the Sun, right? And Moon is with Earth. So maybe the Moon should be here. Do you see how there's like a similar issue, whether we're looking like from the Chaldean order and the Ptolemaic universe, geocentric, then the sphere of Moon, Mercury, Venus, Sun. Where's the Sun, right? Then Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, stars, and spirit. But if we're going this way, now we can kind of see this like that elementary school classroom poster, right, of heliocentric. So there's Sun, and then Mercury, and then Venus. And now we're missing either the Earth, but the Earth is the center of the chart, or Earth is with the Moon. So maybe Moon should be there, right, instead of the neighbor of the Sun. Or maybe Sun should be here instead of the neighbor of the Moon. Do you see where I'm playing? All right, but anyway, from the Sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. Some say that's why Uranus really fits in Aquarius, because with the discovery of Uranus, the planet outside of Saturn's orbital path, right, then it would just make sense when we're looking heliocentrically from the Sun, And of course, Uranus was not discovered until 1718, after the heliocentric nature of our solar system is rediscovered, right? So Sun, Venus, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and then you put Neptune here. And then some systems you may have seen don't have, they've like, instead of taking Scorpio from Mars and giving it to Pluto, they do this with Aries, because you could see how that would work, right? Heliocentrically. So Sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. Well, what happens when you discover Chiron and then, trans-Plutonian planets and yada, yada? What do you do over here, etc.? It's an interesting question, but I want to look at this ancient code, and I want to also explore this interesting thing that I discovered, and I discovered this like somebody once discovered 2 + 2 = 4. It's not like they invented a thing. They stumbled upon a thing, right? Yesterday, I stumbled upon a thing that I'm finding very helpful, which is that when we look at the so-called Decan rulerships, or the lords of the faces, right? The decans or the faces are these 10-degree divisions of the wheel, that you get to find the days of the week. Now, with the decans, they really attest for, I think, some ancient alignment to the 0 Aries wheel. So I'm not going to call it Thema Mundi when I switch to a 0 Aries wheel. Let's do that in this way. Get these in, and we can just go back some hours to get a 0 Aries wheel here, or really forward, because I'm in whole sign houses. So there you go. Pay no attention to the place or time. That's not the point, although it is fun that we fast forward to Tuesday. Because Tuesday is Mars's day, right? Well, I'll show you an interesting thing there. Let's go look at an essential dignities table for the time cast, and you're going to see it's the day of the moon. So why would that be? Because it's the 7th hour of the night, and days begin in this system with the 1st hour of the day, and that's the sunrise hour, right? So today I'm recording this on Monday, Moon's Day, June 30th, 2025. Happy birthday, Kyle. If you're into that whole Gregorian trip. And in the system of essential dignities, and I wonder how long this has been true, we change from planetary rulers with the change of the day, and that happens at sunrise. Like the center of the sun at the horizon is what the softwares are using. It's like what most of us have learned and taught. Now, the reason why I say I wonder how long this has been true, and Moon Day is the right day to ask this question, is days used to begin at sunset. I mean, interestingly, if you look at Galileo's astrology chart, and I mean the one that he drew with his own pen, at the top, there's 2 different dates. And some argue like, well, we can't work with that chart. He doesn't even know what day he's born. No, that's not what's happening. He's showing the date in the new way, which is this whole AM-PM phenomena. Galileo born in the 16th century, where this switch was just happening in Pisa, Italy, where he was born, to this model of AM-PM, of before noon or afternoon, right? Post-meridian, right? When the sun gets to the meridian, solar noon, which is different than clock noon, but that's a trip for a different time. Well, he also recorded his birth date in the old way, which is hours from sunset. Now, why would we start a day at sunset? Seems as ridiculous as beginning a day in the middle of the night. Sound familiar? I mean, look, at least when you're working with the middle of the night, which, by the way, 12 a.m. on a clock is not a clock, is, approximating the movement of the sun through the sky, and as we believe, down beneath the ground through the duat in the nighttime, right? So day and nighttime below, right? So the clock is approximating that. But what you and I know as noon, this 12 p.m. thing on a clock, that's actually not true solar noon, which is when the sun is at the midheaven, when the sun hits the meridian, right? So, and that's where it stops going up and starts going down. And it begins going up, or so we think. We can't see beneath the ground to know this is true, but it makes sense that the sun begins his daily climb in the middle of the night, right? And so you can see some sense in this idea of we change the calendar in the middle of the night because that's when the sun begins his daily climb. But it is pretty weird. It seems a lot more natural to begin a day at sunrise. You know, most of us begin our days around that time, depending on how close you are to college age. Happy birthday, Kyle. My nephew's birthday today. But why would we begin days at sunset? And the answer is that is the place, the sunset west, where you find the first moon of the month, which is not moon conjunct sun, which we these days call new moon, right? A new moon is a no moon. The moon is under the beams of the sun, lost in the flames of the sun. It's typically the next day or even maybe 2 days after the moon-sun conjunction when we first see that sliver crescent, that young maiden moon, Diana's bow, the sliver smile of the moon, this evidence that she has survived her monthly fire trial, right? New moon in the heart of the sun, and then moon is reborn. And that rebirth of the moon is found in the west after sunset. Right? And so this is why many traditions, like the Babylonian tradition, still kept in the Hebrew calendar tradition, began days at sunset because they aligned their months to the moons, right? And not by the moon-sun conjunction, which we can figure mathematically, or kind of observationally, somewhere in between the time when the crone moon, Hecate's bow, the sliver waning crescent moon, is seen before the sunrise in the east, right? Sometime before that, between that like last waning moon and the time of the first in the sunset west waxing moon, right? The young moon. Sometime in between, the moon can join the sun. But unless it's an eclipse and you happen to be on Earth where you can experience that shadow play, a new moon is a no moon. So we're really like charting that, calculating that, right? And we trust the charts these days, and we probably should, but how accurate are they? Like I like to go to the sky with my eyes. All right. You know, while I'm here, let me just say this, that traditions who align the calendar months to the phases of the moon typically have months that alternate between 30 and 29 days. And the reason why is the average lunation, new moon to new moon, is 29 and a half days. So to avoid having to deal with a half day month, which you could, by the way, you could do like 29 days starting at sunrise, and then 29, and then like start your next day that same sunset and do 29 of those. I guess it would be 30. Yeah, I'm already lost. Anyway, instead of having to deal with half of a day, you just alternate between 30 and 29, 30, 29, 30, 29, and that keeps that 29 and a half day pace from new moon to new moon. An issue there, however, is that 12 of those periods, 12 lunations, is like 354 days. So you're short of the calendar year, and that's a drag, right? So you end up having to have a system of intercalary months or leap months. And because you're off by like 11 days from the 354 of 12 lunations to the 365-ish of a solar year, After a year, you're off by like 11. After 2 years, you're off by 22. After 3 years, you're off by 33 days. So you throw in a leap month. But it can't be 33 days long. It's either going to be 29 or 30, depending where you are in that oscillation between 30 and 29 to keep the 29 and a half day pace, right? To keep your months aligned to the actual phases of the moon. And since 30 or 29 don't equal 33, it gets a little bit more complicated in this calendar kung fu. Probably the most amazing thing ever is that there actually is a period where these two rhythms, the Earth Sun, the seasons, and the Earth Moon Sun, the lunations, synchronize, which is wild because one, the solar year, 365.242199 days. Right? So it's like, so, and then the lunation, 29.53059 days, right? And those two periods actually synchronize over the course of 19 solar years. And think of the 19 as the sun card of the tarot. There are almost exactly 235 lunations. And I always remember that by the tilt angle of Earth is 23.5. So 235 lunations. And what happens is you have seven leap months over the course of these 19 years. All right. I'm looking at the clock. This might be part one because I get to go hang out with Bobby McFerrin in a few moments. With the whole family is doing this thing up here every week for a time where he gets people singing together. Bobby McFerrin. So that's cool. I probably should have showered. But I'm a mad scientist today, especially. All right. Anyway, I'll just say this too. How old is this 7-day week? This is something I'm just exploring, and I'm really appreciating a video that a friend sent me on YouTube from, I believe, this woman here, who's describing a Mesopotamian musical system in accordance with an ancient cuneiform tablet that actually has this 7-pointed star in it. And it was thought at first that this was an astrological omen, of course, with the 7 planets. And it's speaking of the days of the week, but it actually turns out to be a recipe for tuning the lyre, the ancient harp. And while you can see in this order, and people in music always draw clockwise, and maybe this was in astrology, we might look this way more often these days, but instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you can see that, right? There's this order where you can go 4, 1, 5, 2, 6, 3, 7, 4, 1, 5. And if you speak music, you can know this as the circle of fifths. So let's say 1 is the key of C, okay, or the note C. Then let's go down a fourth first. So in the circle of fifths, we'll go from F here, F, C, to the fifth of C, G, to the fifth of G, D, to the fifth of D, A, to the fifth of A, E, to the fifth of A, which is B. And then we have this issue because the fifth of B is F sharp, right? But if we just stay diatonic, or like in a major scale, we're like F, C, G, D, E, A, B, F, C, right? And so that's basically how the major scale is built through the third harmonic, or the octave below the third harmonic, which is the musical fifth. And if you don't speak music, that's like, dude, what are you talking about? Well, I'm used to it. Anyway, let's go to Music Circle Home. And so you can go check out musiccircle.net and see some of these videos. But I was hoping about the author inventor. Yeah, let's just, to give some credit where credit's due, Sarah DeRose. I happened across this video quite serendipitously, as things go, and synchronistically, as things go, by giving a call to an old bandmate who I miss, an old brother. Cancer New Moon. I was like, I'm going to call Mom, Dad. I'm going to call all the old boys from my band, right? And so Kevin Kendrick turned me on to this old Babylonian recipe of tuning the ancient harp, which might be the oldest evidence we have of the do re mi fa sol, the do re mi fa sol la ti do situation. And it's also in our astrology. So yesterday, I then kind of accidentally stumbled across this truth that if you look at the Decan rulers, you can find the days of the week. Now, this is why I say the Decan rulerships, and these go way back. I don't know how far back. They really seem to point to 0 Aries, because Mars is the first 10 degrees of Aries. And by the way, the first 10 degrees of Scorpio. And Mars is the only planet associated with the first 10 degrees of a sign that he's also said to rule or keep as a home. And that's true for both Aries and Scorpio. You don't see Jupiter with Sagittarius, or Saturn with Capricorn or Aquarius, or Jupiter with Pisces. You don't see Venus with Taurus or Libra. You don't see the moon with Cancer, or the sun with Leo. You don't see Mercury with Virgo or with Gemini. It's just like, it kind of like feels like Mars designed this thing. Mars also gets one more slice than any of the other planets, because you're going through the order of the 7 visible planets. And of course, 7 times 5 is 35, right? But there's going to be 36 of these slices, and Mars is the one who gets an extra one. And so you get this interesting Mars 20 degrees, the last 10 of Pisces and the first 10 of Aries. So it seems to be evidence, I would say, that the ancients, or at least however old the Decan rulerships are, we're really honoring the East Equinox point, the 0 Aries. And for me, that would be an honoring of the tropical zodiac, and I think this goes earlier than we think the advent of the tropical zodiac does, so that's an intriguing thing. And how old is the 7-day week? Well, in a sense, it goes back to Sumer and Babylon, Sumeria. However, what I was taught in that music video that's also associated with the days of the week with the musical Circle of Fifths is that it was really the Jews, when the Jews were in captivity in Babylon, who took to a 7-day uniform week of Sunday, Moon Day, Mars Day, Mercury's Day, Jupiter's Day, Venus's Day, Saturn's Day, and then back to Sunday. Because in the Babylonian system, since they were really aligning their months to the moons, and as the Hebrew calendar does, but they were doing 7, 7, 7, 8, right? So an 8-day week. And in this video also, I first heard from Sarah DeRose, the inventor of the music circle, that octave, which musically is this. No, it's not. The 8th note of the scale, that it actually etymologically links to an 8-day period. So like from like a Sunday to a Sunday, like a religious ceremonial period of 8 days. Intriguing. All right. Anyway, so the Babylonians for the 29-day month would go 7-day week, 7, 7, and then 8. That's 29. 4 sevens, of course, being 28. And then for the 30-day month would go 7, 7, 7, 9. So a 9-day week, which is intriguing for all sorts of other reasons I don't have time to get to, because I'm about to go sing with Bobby McFerrin, which is crazy because I can't sing. Anyway, look here. Hopefully you know that like Marte is Tuesday, right? Well, look at just the first decan lords of each of these things. And you go Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Saturn, Sunday, Sun, Moon Day, Mars's Day, Tuesday, Mercury's Day, Miraculous Wednesday, Jupiter's Day, Jueves, Jove, right, Thursday, Venus, Viernes, Friday, Saturday, Sabado. Now, when we go back Saturn to Mars, it breaks up. So again, you might want to start at 0 Aries. But look, now we can go from Saturn's Day to the second Decan Lord. Saturday, Sunday, Moon Day, Mars's Day. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Now go to the third Lord, third decan. Venus, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and now you're out of decans, right? So Tuesday. So when I shared this online yesterday, I chose to use Ruby Tuesday as the backup song, thanks to the Rolling Stones. Kind of stops rolling there in a way. All right, well, musically, and let me show you this. So the diatonic scale. Oh, sorry. If we grow from the spheres close to home, so Moon, Mercury, Venus, Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, we can assign notes, or we can fall in from spirit through Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, and then come here, right? Well, in this order that I was just showing as a star, this is the circle of fifths. I can't even get to the last note. I don't have enough keys on this melodica. Unless I put them all in the same octave, and then it's going to go like this. And that's it. That's the 7. All right. Well, with those notes assigned to the Chaldean order, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, but through the circle of fifths, and starting with the Lydian, the 4th, then it goes Sun, Moon, Mars. Well, it goes like this. Sun, Moon, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, Saturn, the days of the week. Right? The days of the week, by the way, it also works importantly with a 24-hour system. And so if we begin a day like at sunrise on Monday with Moon, because there's 24 hours, you're going to go like the 8th hour of the day is also Moon, right? Because you went Moon, Saturn, Jupiter, Sun, Venus, Mercury, and Moon. And you'll do it again, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, and then the Moon. So the 15th hour of the day, the Moon. Basically, any 7x plus 1, right? Moon. So three times through the 7 is 21. And so Moon also will be the 22nd hour of Moon Day. And then Moon, Saturn, Jupiter, right, is hour 22, 23, 24. So the first hour of the next day, Mars. You go to Tuesday. And really any system like this of 3, like the 3 decans, or the 24 hours, right? 3 times the 7 plus the 3, right? You can have 17 hours days or 10-hour days, and it would do the same thing where Moon Day is going to be followed by Mars's day, you see? Anyway, I had been told that in this Thema Mundi situation, and this is just what I want to explore really quickly, that there's a different thing called the, let's show this in a different way. The Egyptian order. And that it's based upon the average year. So the moon gets around the zodiac, or the average time around the zodiac. So that the moon goes around in 27 days, the sun in 1 year. Now, Mercury can be less than a year because faster than the sun. Venus can be too. But on the years where Venus retrogrades, it's much longer than a year. And Mercury retrogrades 3 times a year, actually pi times a year, which is just the most genius thing ever. So my question is, like, what's the average time of Mercury, like a Mercury transit of the zodiac? So we probably have to look at like really 33 of these, but maybe 7. So I'm going to display like only Mercury, or let's do Mercury and the sun. And let's just say like Mercury at 0 Aries. And let's look. So that happened in 25 on April 15th. And then we get April 14th, so a little less than a calendar year. April 8th, less than a year. March 31st, less. March 23rd, less than a calendar year. March 15th, less than a calendar year. March 7th, less. March 1st. March 13th, so more, because this year it was March 1st. Now March 13th. March 16th, more. April 12th. Oh, wait, it was April 16th, but look at that one. March 13th. Oh, sorry. You know what I'm looking at there. Dang it. I need to start over because Mercury can't be retrograde for this to work. So, April 15th in 2025. And let me lock this into a 0 Aries wheel, and I got to go. So, I'm going to continue this later. But April 15th, April 14th, April 8th, March 31st, March 23rd, March 15th, March 7th, March 1st. And really, we're going to have to do, since Mercury is retrograding around the point there, we're going to need to do the second ingress, I think, and that gets to April 16th. And I think we're going to see a pattern there where it like falls back through the calendar dates until there's a Mercury retrograde on this loop. And there actually was in 2025. So let me go back before this year and we'll see there were 3 crossings of this point, March 3rd, then in retrograde March 29th, and then April 15th. So maybe we go March 3rd until April 14th, which is much more than a year. And that's not going to happen every time. It's kind of like a 7-year structure. It goes Mercury's genius, 7 6 7 6 7 7 7 6 7 6 7 7. But either way, that structure I think will play out over the course of those 7 or 6 years, where the average Mercury transit of the zodiac is a little bit more than a year, and so therefore longer than the sun if it's averaged out over time. And so then you come to, I've been told it's the Egyptian order, and that's this thing: Moon, Sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. And so it's that place where in the Chaldean order, you know, this thema mundi or rulership order gets broken up because it should go Moon, Mercury, Venus, Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. If we're looking at the amount of time, average time it takes for a planet to go through Earth's zodiac, then it is Moon, Sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. So I'll let you encourage you to go explore that on your own time because I'm out of mine. Thanks for spending some time here. If you like the video, please give it a like, share it around with other star seekers, student nerds like us. And please support the work. GeminiBrett.com. Check out the Constellations community. You can find a donate link there. You can book a session with me. I sure would appreciate the help. All right. Off to see Bobby McFerrin. Wish me luck.